Hey, Bob Nolan here with some so humble provocations about humility. I'm getting a bit woke about what people mean by humble or humility. I've looked up the word in a few dictionaries. All of them say the same stuff, that what humility is not. It's not assertive, it's not aggressive, not talkative, braggadocious, proud, not pushy, the usual suspects. One of them even says that to be humble is to not believe that you are important. Can you believe that? I would never tell someone to believe that they are not important. I don't really care what humility isn't. I want to know what it is. Here comes a bunch of pictures of people who you might recognize. Some seem humble. A lot of them, not so much. Humble seems kind of undefinable, so instead of trying to define it here, I'll just try to provoke some thoughts about how it works. I checked out the Bible on humility. Biblically, humility is not necessarily an inner attitude, but something you do to yourself. A person in a humiliating or destitute situation, a person who brings himself before God because he's desperate. Something that God does to people to test or prepare them for a task, humiliation. A person or group that suddenly turns to God to obtain healing or rescue from enemies. Something that God does to people to reveal their true heart. I think the dictionaries are wrong. Humble isn't something you're not. Like God said about Moses. He was aggressive, assertive, he got angry, he was challenging to people, but God said he was humble. Is anybody automatically humble? Is anybody born humble? Babies and toddlers certainly aren't humble. Ask me, I've had 5 kids. They live in it's all about me land. They're the most self-centered people on the planet. Humility is something that gets developed as you grow up. You think? Now, God doesn't define humility because he assumes we know what it means. Quit talking, quit pontificating, depend on God instead of yourself, stuff like that. Like God assumes that we're not humble, so he tells us to do it to ourselves. I don't know how you gauge humility. Is it because somebody talks bad about themselves? Actually, that's not very humble. It could be kind of self-centered. What about people to whom you give a compliment and they can't just say, thank you? They have to say, oh, it wasn't me, it was God. I don't think they're humble. They're just feeling shame, and they think that if they tell God and people that they're bad, God will like that. Do you like it when your children tell you that they are bad? What comes to your mind if you thought God was telling you to humble yourself? What comes to my mind is stuff like stop being angry, stop talking and listen. Think about God and other people instead of yourself. All I'm saying is that's what comes to my mind. What about yourself? When you think of having to humble yourself. Now, is this humility thing a worthy subject to understand, to think about, to investigate? It might be, because humility seems to be an important factor for both God and good people. To know what humility is, what it's not, who God thinks is humble, might be an important factor in appraising any person, especially leaders and other influential people. If you think someone is arrogant, you might be reluctant to listen to her. On the other hand, if you consider someone humble, but they're really not, you might be listening to the wrong person. I've been kind of a student of personality and communication styles. It's stuff really about how God made you and how you've developed personality and communication style. But personality style has nothing to do with humility. Being aggressive or assertive or even a loudmouth doesn't necessarily mean you're arrogant and not humble. But being shy or self-deprecating might not mean that you are humble. Humility may not be the most important thing in the world, but it appears to be important to God. And discerning it, figuring out who's humble, might be important for the likes of you and me. Humble people stop and think in a crisis or an affliction. Like in remember part one of this humility thing. Reggie Jackson, the baseball player, kind of arrogant, was in a terrible accident, and he stopped and thought, maybe God is tapping me on the shoulder. I'm provoked to think that humility isn't something you are or something you're not. It's something you do to yourself. Kind of like love. You can, say it and feel it, but most of us know that love is something you do. Same with humility. Humble is something that you do.
Where you go? Where shall I go? What shall I do?
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
I guess it's hard to know who's really humble and who's not. Me? I am very, very humble. When I decide to humble myself. Bob Nolan with Thought Provokers. And you be careful out there.
Something tells me